afternoon, everyone. Happy Monday. I'm the Grace Strega, and I'm here to give you your daily collective read for today, Monday, January 1st, 2023. What do we have coming through in the cards for today? May I please have the first 5 cards in our 5-card spread? First card we are starting our day off with today is our Queen of Cups. We love seeing this. Bearing in mind, this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. Masculine and feminine energy in the divine union frequency right now. We see that feminine energy is working right now on a space and from a space and place of emotional balance. We saw that a lot of this balance was coming in prior to coming into this new year. We saw that there was almost a calling back of energy that was occurring right now for the energy in the divine union frequency. But a point of observation, you have to bear in mind that we saw that for a lot of this energy that was moving in this vibration, a lot of this was a lot of intentional energy focused on trying to heal anything that feels unhealed. One of the things that we think that is very valuable and important that we're seeing right now for the energy in the divine union frequency is the fact that feminine feels like they are navigating and addressing circumstances and situations from a state and space of emotional safety. Emotional safety is going to be the watchword that we're seeing right now for a lot of the energy in the divine union frequency. Why do we find the feminine energy right now in a point of emotional balance? Because we see that for a lot of the energy that's in the divine union frequency, the feminine energy feels very safe there, which allows an easement. And a lot of this is potentially coming through with a lot of reconsideration point as it relates to the past and past experiences. But again, it's remarkable to see how the energy around you can effectively impact how you are feeling internally. So we see that for a lot of the feminine energy right now in this frequency, it feels like an act of cultivation. It feels like an act of curation. It feels like a lot of slowness that you're potentially starting this year in with right now, because you are taking this time to move with a lot of emotional intentionality. So we do not see feminine right now in a state or space of reactivity. Almost again, utilizing the Mercury retrograde this time, not necessarily moving against it, but allowing that slowness to almost become a part of the energy moving with the current as opposed to against it. Now, masculine energy in divine union frequency, seeing this energy with your feminine is again almost immediately amplifying to you that a lot of the work that you've been trying to put into circumstances and situations is not a lost cause. In fact, we see here that in a way, feminine energy coming from a state and space of being emotionally stable in this way almost acts as an anchor for the masculine energy. So again, that amplification, masculine almost immediately becoming much like the feminine, a mirror in this way, because the feminine energy coming from this point of emotional stability is allowing the masculine energy to feel anchored, to feel security, to almost embrace that same sense of slowness. Because again, what we're re-identifying that a lot of the energy is seeing and recognizing right now that's in the divine union frequency. If you don't feel like you're going anywhere, a lot of the masculine energy is almost identifying and articulating, saying, where would I want to go? This is where I want to be. That gravitation to the feminine in that point of emotional balance is creating that safe harbor, if you will. And so this is also allowing a lot of the masculine energy right now to also move into this state of slowness, feeling and appreciating the fact that a lot of finding the feminine energy in this modality is almost a masculine feeling the profound relief of seeing the fruits of their own effort in creating a place and space that feminine can be their most open and free energy to be able to be in their honest expression, because this is again something that the feminine energy needs to feel safe in order to embody. Now, masculine and feminine energy right now that are coming into the divine union frequency, this is again why we see this may have felt like a lot of a gauntlet that you had to effectively go into prior to coming into divine union at this time. And even at this moment, potentially having to put off some energy that is coming towards you right now. It almost may be feeling like there's like a barrage of goodwill or good-natured circumstances and situations that are arising right now. But again, masculine energy that is maintaining and continuing forward in the divine union frequency isn't allowing themselves to get distracted by whatever's coming up right now as the divine union's forming. More, it is that point of patience, that slowing down, as it were, that is occurring around circumstances and situations, identifying and recognizing that anything that is truly coming towards the divine union at this time from a state or space of goodwill isn't going to have an expiration date on it. The good does not have a clock that it operates on. It's just good. And in this way, we see here that this is, again, much like the energy we see of masculine right now, deep in the heart of the divine union frequency, we see that a lot of the masculine and feminine energy that's able to maintain this is masculine energy that is learning the ability of holding that point of consistency in maintaining that frequency with feminine, relies on working with feminine to make sure that the feminine feels safe and embodiment. And that is why we saw that a lot of these challenges that have been coming towards a lot of energy right now that's moving into the divine union frequency have to do with the difference in what feels like it is harmful or harmless right now. We saw here that there may have been a little bit of nitpicking here about something that masculine may have felt comfortable moving forward with right now, but feminine not necessarily feeling so. And we see that for the energy that's able to maintain and continue forward in this divine union frequency, putting the feminine energy's own sense of emotional safety and stability to the forefront is what is allowing you to maintain and continue forward into this vibration. Feminine energy, seeing a masculine energy that is able to do this, that is putting a lot of fastidiousness in towards how you feel, and almost again not letting you kind of move into a state of artifices, not letting you say something is fine when it's not, but truly seeking to try to get to the heart and understanding of your own nature is what is also building that point of stability for you right now, because we see here that feminine is very good at identifying the difference of a masculine energy that is putting on a show, as it were, emotionally, versus a masculine energy that is very much committed to making sure that feminine energy feels safe, seen, and supported at this time. So we see that for a lot of the energy right now that's continuing forward in this way, this ability of masculine to be able to slow things down, even beyond their own timeline, even beyond something that they may feel comfortable moving forward with, but feminine's not. So masculine slowing something down for the sake of the feminine. This is further amplification of feminine, that they are in fact continuing forward in a place of safety and into this frequency, specifically due to the fact that this is a feminine that sees a masculine that is putting a lot of this care and determination in their own emotional safety and security. Now, energy that has fallen into separation over this, we see that this is why there is something about this right now that feels like it is such a challenge to come back into any point of union right now, because this is feminine energy that immediately, if falling into separation, is holding forth, and they are analyzing their own emotions. They are looking and they are trying to seek emotional stability almost immediately coming into separation, because what do we see was happening that may have led to a lot of this energy coming into separation? We are almost seeing it almost like the divine union frequency being held like an egg, as it were, right? Almost something like precious that was being held onto here. So we see that one of the reasons that a lot of feminine energy isn't necessarily chasing after masculine right now, if they're falling into separation, is this is feminine energy that still feels to a certain extent that they got the hang of it, that they've got the frequency. This is feminine energy that feels to a certain extent that they've been left to care for something. And the problem is what they're holding to care for right now. It's not a lack of losing it. It's like feminine's still in that vibration. It's just now that feeling, if this is masculine energy that showed any level or degree of fickleness in being able to maintain it with the feminine, this is feminine energy that's almost getting so covetous with it that they're pulling back. They're pulling back on their own energy, because this is feminine saying, I'm going to keep maintaining this with or without the presence of the masculine there. This is feminine almost saying, I don't need the masculine to do that. I would like to have the masculine there to maintain this, but I'm going to continue to work to build that level or degree of consistency. Masculine energy and separation right now, this is exactly what we see is some of the hurdle and difficulty if you are on your own healing. We've been talking about this. What does one do? The best way I can describe this, and this is why for any of the feminine energy and separation right now, I want you to throw a little bit of a bone to the masculine energy and separation, especially if it's new energy, because this is literally like that scene in Monty Python, where someone comes up to the castle and says, we're looking for a grail, and someone's like, we already have one. This is like how masculine feels right now, trying to approach a lot of the feminine energy potentially, if in separation, because this is feminine energy that's in separation right now, that's so covetous of their own peace, of their own emotional balance, that there's almost a resistance aspect that is hitting right now in terms of letting masculine energy in for fear of upsetting the emotional peace and stability that the feminine has been working so hard to maintain. So for masculine energy right now, what are we seeing is occurring that's in that point of separation? Masculine energy is becoming is identifying masculine energy in that healing space and place, is almost articulating to feminine that ability to build that bridge. That ability to build that bridge is necessary right now by building that point of emotional connection, almost identifying and recognizing and saying to the feminine, I understand why you are so careful. I understand why you hold these things so precious and why even now you're moving in this way. And again, this is masculine energy to a certain degree that's working right now to help amplify to the feminine how much they value the feminine energy's own ability to maintain that point of emotional balance. Continuing to get clarification right now. The problem for a lot of masculine and separation is this is almost feeling a little bit, and I think we're seeing this here, masculine, almost like the feminine energy not necessarily extending the same to you right now, because again, they're almost coming from a state or space. It's not due to a lack of care. It's coming from a point of the feminine working so hard in an act of protection right now. Second card in our 5-card spread for today. I am not surprised to see this card coming up, my friends, because what do we have here? This is the Mercury retrograde lesson. But again, what's very valuable and important about this right now, and why this retrograde is slapping a little different than the retrogrades prior to this is not a moment. One of the things that's really beautiful about this retrograde is we don't see that point of resistance that we commonly see when we hit retrograde periods. What we're effectively seeing right now that's very intriguing is the fact that a lot of the energy right now is just going with the flow of the retrograde, almost saying the retrograde is going to slow things down and we're here for it because conveniently, timing-wise, this retrograde is hitting at a moment that we enjoy and prefer things to slow down. So it feels very much like one ought to be in this vibration right now, which is why this retrograde is moving through a little bit easier, though it has been emotionally trying, because it's slowing things down at a point where there's a lot of emotional investigation that is happening right now, specifically for feminine energy. Now, masculine and feminine energy right now that are in divine union, this is okay. This type of work, it's hard, it's heavy. But again, the divine union frequency itself is almost creating a space or place that allows this to feel like this is exactly the type of work that one ought to be doing at this time. It feels very timely, particularly for the feminine energy right now, because we could see, I'm going to describe this. It's going to be like feminine energy right now in the divine union frequency, having that slowness, that deep slowness setting in. But again, it's coming through as something that feels more like repose. It feels more like a point of emotional balance. It's allowing one to really investigate one's own emotional self. And that's why we see, in a way, this almost feels like the gift of the retrograde coming in just as it's needed, even as we reach the conclusion of it. Masculine energy right now, one of the things that you may be identifying and experiencing is, again, a feminine energy that is just working very hard on maintaining a level or degree of emotional balance at this time. This is almost feminine energy moving into a state or space of finding internal contentment. And one of the things and challenges that we're seeing right now for the masculine energy is, again, appreciating and respecting and feeling that same sense of balance, because in a way, having the feminine energy in this point of emotional stability is, in a way, that feeling of triumph that the masculine is experiencing right now, because that is that moment that is almost slowing the masculine down, because the masculine in this vibration doesn't feel like there's anything else that they're effectively seeking. It's like the feminine energy has become the harbor. It is the safe space. So why would the masculine energy be upset that things aren't moving as quickly as they might aspire or desire to right now? I keep giving you guys like the description of like a bus stop effect. If the bus stops at a nice vista, then you're okay hanging out a while. And we see that for a lot of the energy right now in that divine union frequency, it's that feeling that does feel like things have slowed down, but it doesn't feel like a point of anxiety. It almost is bringing a bit of a calming energy to things right now. It's allowing for a little bit of emotional reset that is so fundamental and so supportive, which is why this retrograde is hitting a little bit differently. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union frequency right now. Things could be slowing down, but this is going to feel like much more of a sea change. The sea change is specifically masculine. One of the things that you may be feeling that is kind of surprising is, again, you may be letting go of some things, or maybe this feeling that there's a lot of opportunities potentially popping up. And what do we see that the masculine energy that is maintaining and continuing forward into divine union doing, that is amplifying and allowing for this to be a continuation into divine union rather than falling into separation? This is masculine energy, as we've been identifying, that is willing to put things on a longer timeline, all for the sake and all for the interest of the balance of the feminine. This is masculine energy. Again, if coming into this right now, this may have led to a point of discernment, having to navigate and identify spaces or places that you might have felt a little bit more comfortable moving quickly on, whilst feminine may have had to pull back. But you also recognize that being able to come into mutual determination points, being of one mind on something here, is effectively, again, having that appreciation and respect of feeling the stability and security of having the feminine in that point of recognizing that you will appreciate them and wanting to support them on how they're truly feeling on things, is what you are bringing to circumstances and situations, even if they're coming from a state or space of positive nature. Because we did see that for a lot of the masculine energy right now that is coming into divine union, there may be feeling like there's a lot of energy that's trying to like heal or build some karmic bridges with you right now. And the solution to identify whether they are coming from a place of honest to goodness, true desire to karmically heal, is whether they can wait, is whether the timing is something that is necessary here, because it's the identification that something coming from a good nature or from a good direction isn't necessarily going to have a clock on it. So we see that for a lot of the energy right now that is coming into divine union, it's almost that observation point of saying, like, I appreciate that you're coming forward in this way. I'm not effectively available right now, but I'd like to continue this later or at a different time, is almost recognizing and identifying what feels like it's truly coming from a good nature versus something that is potentially coming towards you because they find you moving into divine union. Masculine and feminine in separation right now, this is exactly why we see that so much of the feminine energy at this time is moving in a state or space that they are not rushing into any relationships. We don't see here, this is feminine energy that isn't looking or seeking masculine energy at this time, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. We see here that this is feminine energy, much like the energy that's in the divine union frequency, that is working very hard on building that sense of emotional balance for themselves at this time. This is feminine energy that is taking this time at the beginning of the year, allowing that slowdown that we're seeing with this energy of the retrograde not to effectively shake their own emotional balance at this time, because we do see that feminine energy right now in separation, it's not the fact that some of this energy may have been pulled out right now of situations and circumstances wherein, again, they found themselves in separation over something that one person may have been identifying as harmless versus another person arguing that it is not. And that's almost that moment right now of feminine feeling that point of security, if such is the case, because this is feminine energy that's almost recognizing and amplifying the value and significance of timing. And that in a way, that is why we see here that this is feminine energy that is working very hard right now to maintain that same frequency, to maintain whatever balance they may have reached if they were coming out of separation with masculine, because this was almost a moment that feminine almost feels to a certain extent that what they've created with masculine, that frequency isn't necessarily gone. It's more feeling the frustration of a masculine that is not able to maintain their post. They're not able to maintain that ability to protect or hold forth in terms of protecting the preciousness of that frequency right now. And that is why we see to a certain extent that this is feminine energy that's just effectively very happy right now in a point of solitude, if in separation, because this is feminine energy that in a way is almost protecting their own emotional balance to a certain degree, having found it, and they're becoming very discerning and discriminating on who they allow towards them right now, that is going to also appreciate and respect the gift that the feminine has found within the self and their own healing journey. Masculine in separation, my friends. This is again a bit of that difficulty point, because how does one move towards a feminine that is moving from a state or space of being so discerning, of being so content? The problem with a lot of the masculine energy finding feminine at this time is almost this moment of seeing the feminine in this way, seeing the energy there, but almost recognizing that this is a feminine energy that's going to require a lot of time and patience to move closer to, because this is a feminine energy that is holding their own emotional balance as something that they are protecting very carefully right now. But again, one of the things that we see and appreciate for a lot of the masculine energy in this modality right now is that point of, again, embracing and embodying your own journey, in recognizing that what you are effectively navigating right now is something that is requiring your own level or degree of your own healing journey, because it's showing your ability to be patient. It's showing your own ability to be consistent, and almost allowing that to be the discerning factor right now between like what it is that you're seeking versus moving towards a feminine, is almost amplifying on your journey coming towards feminine right now. The difference between a feminine that's almost saying to you over and over again right now, don't you have somewhere else you'd rather be? This is a lot of this masculine energy and separation potentially hitting these like feminine that are also healing, and feminine being like, don't you have somewhere else you'd rather go? I'm not doing anything here. Nothing important happening here. And masculine almost over and over again right now on the healing journey going, no, this is exactly where I'd like to be. This is exactly where I'd like to be. Why would I have nothing else I'd rather be doing? Because that's almost that point of amplifying to the feminine right now, the level or degree of persistence, of patience, the ability to show the consistency that has caused the feminine energy to be in separation right now. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now. Third card in our 5-card spread for today is, we're not surprised to see this. This is a problem with the retrograde. Even through some communication hurdles. This is almost a point right now we're seeing the retrograde coming through, and the fact that there isn't a lot of communication coming through right now. This is that slowness. This is that slow patch we're potentially hitting. And it is feeling to a certain extent. It's not the fact that it isn't observed. It's not the fact that it isn't seen. We're even seeing right now for the energy in the divine union, there's an observation. As we said, a lot of that energetic work that you put out, you haven't seen it return back yet. This is that reminder, masculine and feminine right now in the divine union frequency. This is that moment, as I said, like putting one's hand on each other's shoulder and being like, it can take as long as it wants. Because it wasn't the reactivity point around circumstances or situations that caused the masculine and feminine to be moving the way that they're moving right now in the divine union frequency. This is almost feeling like a little bit of like message in the bottle kind of stuff, which is almost that observation point with some of this like work that we're seeing, some of this energetic and spiritual work. It's like, if you throw like a message out into the ocean, if the bottle comes back, that's awesome. But you didn't do it with the expectation that the bottle would come back tomorrow. It's more of the nature of what one is doing, right? And it's almost that reliance right now for masculine and feminine on the fact that this is moving right now to a certain degree in terms of lifestyle changes, in terms of how you move. There may be a slowness that feels like it's coming into some circumstances and situations right now because it is the amplification to a certain extent that any of that sense of good nature that you're putting out there, a lot of that work that you're trying to move in this way on, it's not done to elicit a reaction. It's done because that is the way one ought to do it, right? It's the way that one ought to be. It's embodying something as a way of embodying it, not to elicit or generate that response or reactivity point. And that's why we see right now that some of this Mercury retrograde does feel like it's hitting on a bit more of an emotionally deep, profound level, because it is the recognition point of making peace with one's own emotional balance to a certain extent, even around situations and circumstances wherein you may have tried to emotionally communicate something to heal, to build a bridge, to build that positive karma towards some circumstances and situations that you feel need it, even regardless of how that comes back. It's almost that moment and amplification that we're seeing here of someone saying, I didn't do that with the hope of something coming back to me. I did that with the hope of recognizing that that was just how one moves. And we see here that for masculine and feminine right now, that sense of patience that you're able to amplify even around some moment that feels like the place between breaths is why the frequency is so important. It's why what you've created between yourselves is so valuable, because it almost says like being in the divine union frequency is one that it doesn't mean that you're trying to rush off to some place or something. It feels more like you're just trying to extend where you are into where you're going. Masculine and feminine coming into the divine union frequency right now. One of the challenges that we are effectively seeing right now is the fact that there may be some circumstances or situations, energy trying to come forth to you right now from a space or place or a desire to heal something. The problem that we're seeing that is amplifying right now is all about timing. That when you're trying to move into a divine union, often all you need to focus a lot of care, effort, and energy in the preservation of coming into that frequency. And one of the things that we're seeing right now is that moment that is amplifying one's own ability to remain consistent. And some of that is coming through the expression of delaying any kind of energy that may even be coming towards the energy right now from a positive space or place, with the amplification of time, of almost again amplifying and saying that what one is aspiring for, whatever someone's trying to bring forth at this time, may be coming forward in a good space or place, but that the timing isn't ideal. And one of the things that we're effectively seeing right now is that is the determining factor that is occurring for a lot of energy moving into divine union right now, because it is framing the difference between energy that is truly like take all the time you need because something from a good space or place doesn't have a clock on it, versus energy that is potentially moving away as a result of that extension of time coming into focus. And that in a way is what we see is amplifying right now what feels like it is actually supportive of the formation of the divine union into that frequency, versus something that may have been coming towards someone for the aspiration or because they saw a divine union forming and they wanted to effectively, again, it's that articulation point that we're effectively seeing right now that is amplifying what the divine union is discerning. It feels like it is positive and supportive of the divine union, versus something that is effectively like, rescinding or disappearing because someone's trying to put time on it. A lot of energy right now has fallen into separation potentially because of circumstances of this nature. And this is effectively why we see that so much of this feminine energy right now is almost in a space or place, especially if this is energy where this just occurred. We may see that a lot of energy right now of feminine is almost like closing the door on some things right now, energetically, out of a feeling of frustration, of especially if, again, feminine feels like they were working to create or preserve something with masculine to a certain extent, and seeing a masculine having that feeling of frustration of masculine energy that is too easily misled, is too easily drawn away from the feminine, as it were, is almost immediately creating a space or place for a lot of feminine energy that's now in separation, and almost feeling the frustration of not even wanting to articulate and communicate some of this to masculine, because it's almost something that feels like it's so hard to amplify, because it's something that one must understand and embody internally. So this is almost why we see that a lot of this feminine energy right now is almost not even communicating this or putting it into words, because this ability of discernment and patience in recognizing that sense of judgment, the ability to utilize sound judgment and discernment, is one that feminine almost is at a point or space in separation where feminine's like, I can't ask someone, do you have sound judgment and discernment? Are you able to prioritize what should be of value, i.e. the frequency we're trying to maintain together? This is literally something that is so difficult for feminine to put into words, so they understand it intentionally. They understand it on an intuitive level, which is why we see that a lot of feminine energy, it's like they don't even bother responding to some things right now, because it's like, how would one even go about explaining something in that way? Because it is just something that one needs to be able to learn. It's an internal guidance system. It's like literally being like, you don't have an internal GPS. I can't put the GPS in you. So this is why we see a lot of feminine energy that's just almost ignoring the energy that may be coming back in this way, because it's showing someone with a fickleness in terms of their own ability to concentrate on the task at hand. That's why we see that feminine right now is utilizing so much profound patience. And unfortunately for a lot of the masculine energy around the feminine right now, it's probably resulting in a feminine that's also not very articulate or not responding the way that you might aspire or desire to, because that's the feminine putting their care, effort, and intentionality on maintaining their emotional balance and the frequency that they were creating that led them to coming into separation in the first place. Now, masculine energy and separation right now, if you're on your healing journey, this is a hard nut to crack. I got to be honest, guys. I got to be honest, for a lot of the feminine energy and separation, this is like a hard road to hoe here, because what we're seeing now is a moment where the feminine energy is very much cloistered in on themselves, right? They're very much in that point where they are employing that level or degree of being like, I'm good. I'm okay staying good as long as possible. And this is feminine that's not necessarily articulating a lot on their own needs, because again, the solution for a lot of the masculine energy right now that's healing is all in the difference of giving space versus holding space. This is literally feminine energy that is giving masculine energy all the leash that they want. They're like, go ahead, go out in the world, do whatever you want. It's fine. Masculine energy in this modality, though, you may now be kind of experiencing this moment that you feel like something is different or has happened between the feminine in this modality right now, because this is almost feminine energy saying, I want you to use your discernment. Show me what your choices are. Show me where you want to be. Feminine is almost like saying, I'm not going to tell you what they are. I need you to show me that you know where that GPS should lead you. This is feminine almost saying, like, there you go. Here's the map. Here's the compass. I leave you to it. No, I gotta go back to my place. But when you find what you're looking for, you let me know, to see if masculine's going to be the one who's going to be like, yeah, I'm not going anywhere. Like, this is masculine going, this is where I want to be. This is literally what the feminine is effectively navigating right now. Masculine, you may be feeling this to a certain extent because you're almost at this moment that may be coming through as a point of frustration, and a feminine that isn't very much articulating what they desire or aspire, but you're almost feeling that emotional, you're trying to build that emotional connection with. Fourth card in our 5-card spread for today is, we have here our 4 of Swords in its reversal. This is what we expect to be happening right now. Everything's waking up, right? We're about to come in at the end of this Mercury retrograde. The timing is amazing. We've got the beginning of the year here. The reason this retrograde is hitting on an emotional level is because from a functional level, this is almost like exactly where we would want a Mercury retrograde to hit. This is like the timing couldn't be better to a certain extent practically. The problem is emotionally, because of the easement that the practical is allowing the Mercury retrograde, on an emotional and spiritual level, it's allowing for a lot of this deeper shadow work to pop up, right? It's like you got some space now to do some of this like heavier lifting, as it were. Now, masculine and feminine energy right now in divine union, this is not a problematic territory. This is something that is helpful because this is almost masculine and feminine energy in the divine union frequency being like, I don't mind if things aren't happening right now. Now seems like a really good time to go empty the garage. Now seems like a really good time to go get those boxes out of the attic. This is what's happening to a certain extent right now as it relates to the masculine and feminine energy in this modality right now, the divine union frequency, because it's that unpacking that's allowed in a space or place because you're recognizing that energetically you're okay being where you are. You're comfortable being in that space, which is allowing you to do some of this heavier internal work. Feminine is getting a lot of like emotional balance coming into this frequency right now because it's not the fact that the past isn't coming back up like we often see in Mercury retrogrades. It's more feminine energy seeing and experiencing and feeling that point of comfort emotionally that's helping them address some of these past circumstances or situations. So there's a lot of internalized review that we're seeing here. And I have to stress, it's going to be more on the feminine side. We're probably going to see a lot of feminine energy right now. Not surprising, doing a lot of this like internal review or assessment of the past coming into play right now. Masculine in divine union right now, we saw that a lot of this was where you effectively chose to go. You made the intentional effort to drive things forward in this way prior to the start of the Mercury retrograde period. You picked a heck of a time to do it. You basically, masculine energy was like, I'm going to go lead with love in a moment that everything slows down. So this is almost masculine energy being like, I'm going to lead with love. I'm going to like throw this message out into a bottle during like the slowest time or the worst time to do, the best or the worst, depending on how you look at it. Because again, it's that stillness. And this is a little bit harder for the masculine at this time because this is almost an exercise in learning the profound power of your own patience. For a lot of the masculine energy right now, it is finding that eternal ability right now in having patience that is potentially feeling very much like a very high spiritual or emotional calling right now for masculine energy, because it's not the fact that, again, some of those old wounds are surfacing. It's not the fact that some of these old things are happening or rising back up right now. You almost intentionally move forward in this. This was like you, again, pulling those boxes out of the attic prior to the Mercury retrograde starting. But you feel much more emotionally equipped to handle it. Why do you feel emotionally equipped? Because you're in the divine union frequency and feminine's acting as almost an emotional ballast point and an anchor to support you as you do so. Now, masculine and feminine that are coming into the divine union frequency, this is different. This is different because this is not something that you intentionally set forth. This is now starting to feel like it's kind of coincidental. It's kind of odd that as you're moving into the divine union frequency, suddenly all this energy from the past is popping up that wants to build mend fences, that wants to build bridges. And again, it's creating almost a challenging space energetically for you right now because we're effectively seeing at this time, there's that moment of consideration that is being faced as it relates to the intentionality of some of these circumstances or situations. Are they truly coming towards the energy, coming into divine union with the aspiration and desire to heal? Or is there another motivating factor at play? And the solution that we see that the energy coming into the divine union is facilitating, that is allowing the energy to maintain the continuation into the divine union frequency, is time. Because putting things on a slower timeline, utilizing the answer that the Mercury retrograde is providing, as it were, allowing that to be a moment of saying anything good doesn't need to be on a tight timeline, even though there's a coincidentiality to something, is helping to navigate what is truly coming towards the energy right now in an effective desire to actually heal and mend fences, versus something that is trying to just bring the past back up to the surface in the moment that someone is moving away from it. So we see here that ability right now to slow things down, to say, well, if your intentions are great, good, but I've got this divine union I'm forming right now, and I don't really have the ability to like bend myself into two spaces and heal some unhealed karmic energy right now as I'm trying to build it into the divine union frequency. You know, that ability to discern and say that energy, the energy that's truly moving in that state or space of healing, will have that amplification and ability to wait, is respectively identifying right now what feels like it is, again, helping the energy maintain the consistency of the divine union, or potentially acting as something that is just coming up at the moment that is least functional, least positive, least opportunistic to do so. So we see here that a lot of this is helping to amplify to a certain extent the energy that is moving into divine union right now. And we see that for a lot of the masculine energy coming into this could feel like a sea change. Because this could feel like a moment where, again, it's not the fact that the past isn't rising back up. It is that your focus and your orientation is on the emotional comfort of the feminine energy that is around you at the moment that it is occurring. Now, masculine and feminine, and we do see here, and for feminine energy that's also in this modality, seeing and recognizing a masculine energy that is putting your emotional stability first and foremost in the wake of energy from the past rising up, is also amplifying to feminine that this is masculine energy that is also committed to wanting to move forward towards this divine union vibration. Now, masculine and feminine, unfortunately, there are a lot of energies here that potentially fell back into separation over this. And the problem with energy that has fallen back into separation over this is that we see here that feminine energy is almost immediately coming into a state or space where they're being very closed off in allowing the masculine back in. Why is the energy of the feminine, if that is occurring right now, having that point of fastidiousness? Almost, again, allowing the masculine energy going, go ahead, do what you want. Because this is feminine energy that effectively feels to a certain extent that masculine energy lacks the vision or the ability to see when the past is coming back up, but not for the best ideas or best motivations. This is, again, a feminine energy right now that is going through a period or a moment right now of identifying the value and importance of masculine energy's own ability to have that internal GPS, to have their own ability to discern what is in the benefit of maintaining divine union versus all of the continual energy that is always around a divine union frequency that requires that careful act of discernment. And feminine effectively is at a moment right now that we see that a lot of the feminine is holding masculine, even if this is new energy, a bit at a distance, is because feminine energy feels a sense of cynicism, as it were, to masculine energy having an ability to surrender the past, to not be able to, like, you know, almost a vulnerability point that we're seeing that feminine is looking at right now with masculine energy that has a hard time letting things go, building that sense of closure, allowing those to be like spaces or places that just kind of almost feminine looking at masculine and being like, you should just know better than to respond to everything that is thrown at you. Like that in itself is almost that act of discernment. And this is almost feminine energy feeling the frustration of saying to masculine, I can't teach you to do that. I have to trust that you will. So we see that for a lot of the feminine energy and separation right now, if this is energy that's trying to come back to feminine after something like this has happened, it's a very hard road, because this is feminine saying, how do I know that that is not something that will happen again? Almost to a certain extent being like, it's already actively happening. You know, if this is an energy, again, almost amplifying that something is harmless, this is like feminine saying, it's not harmless. It's literally happening as we speak. Like, and this is feminine, like amplifying and trying to say to masculine, being like, can you not see that something has already torn us apart? That whatever you're identifying as harmless has already put a rift here. And that's why we see that for a lot of the masculine energy that is in separation right now, one of the difficulties and challenges around this right now, masculine, is you may have been doing your own sense of self-review at this time. If in separation, we see here, masculine, there may even be a moment that is occurring right now wherein there is a point of optics that we are identifying right now for a lot of the masculine energy and separation, in identifying how your own past is something that has this ability to return. But again, even in separation right now, and this is what we like to see for masculine energy that's on their healing journey, it's not the fact that that doesn't go away. It's all about what you do in those moments. And we see even now for a lot of the masculine energy and separation, that sense of understanding, that recognition of feminine, looking towards new feminine energy and identifying the fact that you can't do dual path work. You can't be trying to heal the past while trying to build something new with a new feminine energy. One cannot occupy two spaces at once. And to a certain extent, we're almost seeing masculine energy that you're recognizing to a certain extent, if you've been doing this work, or it's something in the past that you may now be recognizing may have led to some point of separation, because you are effectively amplifying to all of the feminine energy around you that you wanted to be in multiple places at once. And that in a way, when you choose to keep all of those karmic options open, you're not necessarily showing a prioritization point in a single aspiration of feminine. It feels more like you're kind of like hedging your bets, as it were, towards who will allow you in, rather than actually choosing a feminine that will be your priority and focus. But we see that for a lot of the masculine energy moving in this modality right now, if you're in this journey, that recognition point is something that we see that you're trying to achieve and something that you're trying to correct for. But the problem is how do you articulate that with an energy that is already dubious that that is not happening? Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now. Fifth card in our 5-card spread for today is, this is the solution. Ace of Cups. So again, masculine and feminine energy right now. Do you hear how the answer is in the divine union frequency? So masculine and feminine energy right now, again, navigating this, the energy that's in the divine union frequency, there was an intentionality in setting forward on this path. If something about the past is coming back up right now for a lot of energy that's deeply invested in the heart of the divine union frequency, some of it was self-motivated. Some of it was equally desired on a part of both of the energies to go ahead and to approach things in this way, because these are energies that are moving unilaterally right now as it relates to trying to heal things. But what we see that is so valuable and important right now is almost this moment of being okay. This was almost like a point of observation that one gave towards some situations and circumstances during this time to see if something had the ability to heal. Because, and this is why this work is being done, you are okay either way. It's not that your own emotional or spiritual support was hinging or integral on healing these things. You were healed, so that's why you're almost investing in trying to extend that point of healing to circumstances and situations right now. And that's why we see now, for the energy invested in the divine union frequency, that level or degree of patience is fine, because it wasn't the purpose to navigate something for the sake of having some kind of reaction. There wasn't almost like an agenda in moving forward in this way. It was more of this act of giving because one ought to give. And we almost see here again, this is why we see even now there's a point of emotional or spiritual catharsis coming through at this point, because it's that sense of recognizing that point of positivity, you're still in the same place that you were when you started. It's just more of that observation of looking at something and saying, well, we tried that. We've done what we can. We'll continue to do what we can. This is how we heal. We continue. We don't do this for a reaction to point. We do it because this is how this is how we ascertain if someone is ready to build back a bond, if someone is ready to come into that point of healing. This is how we spread or share the healing that we've reached to those around us, by addressing and unpacking those things that we have been holding on to that we weren't ready to address. It's almost like the masculine and feminine in the divine union frequency, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to, saying this is something that we'll continue to do in this fashion because this is where we are. Masculine and feminine that are moving, as it were, into divine union. This is that moment that we see is so valuable and important right now, specifically due to the fact that we are identifying and recognizing that for masculine and feminine, it's not the fact that there may be some energy right now that is coming towards you at a time with an aspiration or desire to heal something, to mend a bridge, to mend a fence, to build a bridge, to allow that healing component to come towards you right now. It is more the amplification as to whether something is perpetual based on time. And the timeliness, the ability for energy right now to ascertain and say, like if there's energy that's trying to come towards a divine union right now from a point of good nature, the ability to say to something, it can wait, or now is not the time, I need to focus on what I'm doing right now. We're in the middle of trying to create a divine union here. That ability of postponement is amplifying again what feels like it is in the best interest of the divine union that is forming, or something that is moving away at a moment. And even if that's happening, that's why we see, much like the energy that's doing this work intentionally, oh, okay, well, I guess that wasn't coming from such a positive space if there's an issue with waiting, if there's an issue with the time. So allowing that point of analysis is really important right now. Masculine and feminine that are in separation, a lot of energy potentially fell into separation for this reason. But that's why we see that a lot of feminine energy right now in this modality isn't letting themselves be as shaken. Because this is almost feminine energy getting inured to this to a certain extent, because this is feminine energy that's almost building this now as a moment and identifying that there's something here that we see that the feminine energy is trying to make sure that masculine is aware of, as it relates to masculine energy's own ability of having that internal GPS, in recognizing that as you're trying to move into the divine union frequency, there's always going to be opportunities that try to pull you away from it. This is why we see that this isn't a feminine energy that's trying to move into an act or space of self-correction of masculine in this modality. This is feminine energy almost saying, like, you go do it, you go for it, you go make those choices. Feminine energy is focusing on what that choice is, and feminine energy is slowing down processes right now, even as it relates to energy that's coming toward them, especially about energies from the past, to ascertain and to understand if someone has realized and found this internal compass. If this is something of masculine recognizing that point of value by almost getting deeper with masculine and saying, what is it that's truly important to you? Where does your sense of self lie? Does it lie in outside circumstances and situations about those things, or does it lie with the feminine? And that's why we see a lot of this feminine energy and separation right now. It's getting very austere and being like, go ahead, go do what you want. I'm not doing anything important here. I'm just minding my own business, because this is feminine energy that's trying to see masculine, that recognizes and understands, that says masculine energy and separation saying there isn't any other prize. I'm not seeking something else. The only thing I'm seeking right now is feminine, is you. That this is the prize. And this is feminine almost trying to say to like masculine. This is a masculine. This is a feminine that's almost letting the masculine go. Letting them have that, feminine's like, you go ahead. I'll stay here. To identify and recognize the choices that masculine makes, because feminine needs to see a masculine that chooses the feminine, not because they should, but because they desire to. Masculine energy, if you're in this modality of healing right now, you may be understanding and grasping this. You may be going through a lot of work right now to try to articulate to a feminine that is what you aspire to, that is what you desire, but you're recognizing that is not something that you can articulate overnight. That it's something that takes a lot of time and patience and a moment of almost saying like no to things around you and being like, yeah, it wasn't not as interested in doing that. No, not that. Because it's almost that moment of identifying and saying, this is a moment of being able to like let go of things for the sake of recognizing what is truly of value to you at this time. And for a lot of the feminine energy and separation right now, there is a feeling of masculine not being able to relinquish any opportunity that pops up that could pull them out of that frequency. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Queen of Cups and our Temperance card. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now. There, done like hotcake. Yeah, eight of Pentacles right now. How's this articulating? Austerity. Austerity is the name of the game right now. Masculine and feminine energy in the divine union frequency are putting their nose to the grindstone right now. They're getting to work. This almost masculine and feminine energy right now. Working and focusing on what it is that they're trying to bring into the new year. Feminine energy, building a lot of that sense of emotional balance right now, potentially even around circumstances and situations from the past that are potentially rising up to the surface that need to be addressed. Feminine energy is almost not giving them any attention. Like not giving any attention to them, instead just keeping their focus on what they feel like they need to focus on because they've reached that point of emotional balance. This is feminine energy in the divine union frequency, not letting themselves get triggered, not letting themselves, even as they're doing some of this deeper work, this almost feminine energy internally in the divine union frequency, addressing the past to look at it and be like, yeah, it doesn't bother me as much. Or is that trauma? Okay, it's fine. Nope, it's all right. I can move through it. And this is what we see that is happening right now of feminine continuing their healing journey in the divine union frequency, because this is feminine energy that's almost internally facing these parts of themselves that they need to unpack just to make sure they're not getting triggered and almost saying, I can move forward on these. I can be functional. Masculine, seeing a feminine in this modality right now is, again, almost further inspiring you. It's allowing you an ability and security and feeling like you don't need to put a lot of care and concentration on finding the feminine in this point of stability, because this is the accomplishment that you have reached in feeling that there's a feminine here that you have this ability of maintaining this center of emotional balance on. But that's also a point of identifying that is the result of your hard work. That your ability to both work hard and to put that care and energy in, and also have a level or degree of patience and fastidiousness of the feminine's emotional balance, is the gift that comes back to you, because it allows you an ability of having that emotional ballast, that anchor point that lets you focus your time, effort, energy, and attention on more practical things as you go forward from here. This is like giving you all of this bandwidth now, because you're like, I don't need to worry about that part. Sorry, Strega poked me. That part's handled. That part's addressed. Masculine and feminine coming into the divine union frequency, this is going to feel like a little bit of a sea change, because again, masculine energy, one of the things that you may be encountering right now if you're coming into the divine union energy is it's a little funny that now that you're moving into divine union, there may even be a feeling of a lot of other feminines that are trying to come towards you at this time to heal, to build bridges. But again, masculine energy's own ability to discern and to make a particular feminine a priority is what is identifying and articulating the ability to stay in the divine union frequency. And this is why we see that there's a lot of energy right now that is potentially falling back out of the divine union frequency, because it's almost masculine energy that, again, if the ability to look at some energy that's coming towards you, trying to like heal and build bridges as you're moving into divine union, if you're not able to put a clock on it and almost articulate and identify like, I would like to do so, but now is potentially not the time, that is what is identifying whether you are actually continuing into the divine union frequency right now, or if you are fallen, at this point you may have already fallen back into separation, because it is a question about where you prioritize your attention, where your priorities lie. Feminine, seeing a masculine that's able to look at some things right now, and this could even be seeing a masculine being like, yeah, they reached out. I told them I'm a little busy right now. I told them maybe we'll catch up. I told them maybe we'll do this. Masculine's own ability to have feminine energy that's trying to like build those emotional bridges and almost like being able to like put them aside, focusing and saying that timeliness is amplifying to feminine again the fact that this is a masculine energy that's moving from a state or space of like personal autonomy, but that you guys are working in that joint perception. You're in that mutual connection point, because this is a masculine energy that is almost being mindful, incredibly mindful of the space or place of the feminine, to a point that, and we're almost seeing, and this is the beauty of the energy that's coming into the divine union frequency, the masculine almost doesn't need to ask the feminine, because the masculine already knows. But this is why we see that the feminine energy that's moving into divine union right now, seeing a masculine that is almost making those choices with a mindfulness of the feminine without even speaking to them about it, that in a way is further amplifying to a feminine that this is a masculine energy that's able to hold that consistency moving into divine union frequency. Feminine energy right now that's in separation, this is why we see so much of this feminine energy in separation right now, is just focusing on their own self and what they're creating for themselves at this moment, because feminine energy is only allowing masculine energy in right now that shows that same level of fastidiousness and care and consideration. And this is feminine energy that's effectively saying, I will wait. I am willing to wait, because this is feminine energy finding that balance point within themselves. And this is almost creating a space or place about coming into divine union that almost feels like a bit of a nice to have, but not a need to have, which is also really, really important to be able to move into that point, because this is feminine energy realizing that frequency is one that they can generate within the self, and finding someone to continue to build with it on that is consistent and can hold it to that same level of preciousness is the gift that feminine is looking for right now for masculine in separation. Masculine in separation right now, this is why there's a bit of a difficulty here, because what we're identifying is a moment that if your aspiration is coming into divine union with feminine in this modality, it's not something that you realize and recognize that you can do overnight. You have to be able to build that sense of trust with the feminine that such a thing is occurring and can happen, and it's requiring a lot of work and patience, as it were. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now, between our Temperance card in combination with our Two of Wands in its reversal. May I please have one card to clarify? We've got here, this guy always wants to pop up today with its reversal here. This is the same card we got in the reversal the other day. Masculine and feminine divine union. This is why masculine right now, again, masculine at this moment right now in divine union, it's giving a little bit of a shrug. It's giving a little bit of an, that's okay, because that's the thing that we're seeing here. A lot of this motivation that we saw in terms of wanting to heal or build bridges or mend fences here prior to the retrograde starting. It was the reason that this unpacking could happen was because the emotional support was outside of the situations and circumstances. It's like the emotional support was lying outside of it. And that is why we saw that the masculine was putting themselves in these spaces or places. That's also why we see that for a lot of the masculine energy in this modality, if whatever they were trying to come forward with here, you know, that act of trying to heal, that act of trying to like build a bridge, that act of trying to like bring something positive into an unhealed situation or circumstance, if it doesn't work, it's almost like the masculine going like, meh, okay, or not, because it's almost that moment that we're seeing. It's not something that is necessary. It is something that is nice, that would have been nice. Right? And that's also why we see that for a lot of this energy here, it's not about the idea of pulling something back or being offended because something didn't come like work the way that it did. It's almost that moment of being like having patience towards things right now, because we see here that a lot of this feels like a point of, again, establishing and maintaining the frequency is the motivating factor. Having and recognizing that there's just going to be some energy around the divine union, that even at the best interest of trying to heal, there's a lack of possibility here. We almost see that a lot of that right now in itself is what the energy in the divine union is dealing with, because it's almost that moment of feeling that sense of frustration, of looking at something and saying, well, you can give something the best that you can. You can do everything you can to extend that good grace to something. It's up to the energy around the divine union to identify and articulate whether they want to match it. And this almost masculine and feminine almost amplifying again, if these moments were being reached over the last few weeks, that point of observation saying it doesn't change. It's not changing someone's pathwork here. It's just that point of observation that almost feels like, well, it would be nice. It would be nice if they change. We will be welcome when they do. It's that point of willingness and openness of identifying. And the important thing here is, again, we're getting that teaspoon approach here. Because the differentiation is the fact that this isn't something that you're energetically going to pour all of your time and attention into trying to heal. It's something that, like, you know, just that touch, just that tap, just enough to identify whether someone is willing to come into that space or place of healing or not, is almost articulating and identifying what feels like it is supportive to the divine union energy moving forward versus just the necessary state and circumstances that one needs to occupy going forward. So we see that a lot of that is happening right now for the energy in divine union and for the energy coming into divine union, because while we see that the energy that's already in the heart of the divine union is doing that intentionally right now, we see the energy on the outskirts having to necessarily deal with those circumstances as a result to the divine union forming. And that is why patience is coming into play right now to identify anything that is potentially coming towards a divine union that is inadvertently causing a friction point, because it is the identification point on something being able to be offered, even if the timing isn't right, versus something that is only being offered because the timing isn't right. Masculine and feminine in separation, this is why we see a lot of the energy in separation right now, is at a moment or modality where there is a lot of patience coming into play. Feminine energy right now, again, being very resistant towards masculine to a certain extent, because what is the anxiety point that the feminine's feeling right now isn't the fact of masculine offering something to feminine. It's masculine's ability to be consistent in what is being offered. This is literally almost feminine being like not taking feminine, like masculine's own offer seriously to a certain extent, because this is feminine that feels the anxiety of a masculine that may energetically withdraw it because of their own inability to be able to not be drawn away, to not be distracted, to not be allured away from the divine union frequency by every opportunity that comes up in the masculine's path. Masculine in separation right now. This is what we see as a bit of a hurdle here, because again, there's something about having to be able to navigate and maintain your own ability of consistency. How does one prove consistency to energy that is already cynical of allowing that point of building something due to their cynicism of consistency? And the importance here has to do with a bit of masculine moving much more like the feminine energy to a certain extent in terms of adaptability, in terms of almost masculine coming into a point right now in the healing journey in saying, I'm not doing this for what I desire. I'm doing it to find out what you desire. Because that differentiation point is the difference between masculine looking at divine union like something they can offer to the feminine, as opposed to masculine energy recognizing and trying to fall into flow with feminine and saying, I just want to come into a flow state with you. And I recognize that in order to come into a flow state with you, I need to know what it is that I can provide you to make you feel emotionally safe and supported to do so. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Two of Wands in its reversal in combination with our Four of Swords in its reversal. Hairy combination, these two cards here. Hairy combination. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our Emperor in its reversal. Masculine and feminine energy right now in divine union. This is hard work. This is hard work, and it's very hard work for masculine energy. Bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. Why is it hard work for masculine energy? Because what did we see that the masculine energy was being forced to do in some of this work that they set their path upon in the divine union? Surrendering the outcome. Surrendering the outcome was almost required prior to moving in this fashion. Surrendering the outcome. And that in itself is very difficult for masculine energy, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to, specifically due to the fact that it makes the masculine energy have to inhabit a space of wait and see, having to navigate something of putting themselves forward, being vulnerable in a way and not being sure what's going to come out of it is exactly what is so difficult right now, even for the energy of the masculine that's in the divine union frequency, because the act of doing so, the act of potentially communicating or extending something and not getting back what you would hope, or not getting back as quickly as one would aspire or desire to, that in itself feels very disempowering for the masculine energy. It starts to make you feel like there is a lack of control here. But we see that for a lot of the masculine energy in this modality right now, what is helping you through that? The feminine energy that is at a point of emotional stability. Having the feminine energy at a point of emotional stability and saying, I know what it means to be vulnerable. I've been where you've been. I've experienced this too. Feminine's almost like, again, the energy that's in divine union. This is like feminine's almost looking at masculine being like, let me tell you about vulnerability. You think that that's a vulnerable situation? Let me tell you what vulnerability looks like here. Because this is almost feminine that's reached a point of emotional balance as it relates to these circumstances or situations, that they're helping the masculine on this path work by recognizing and seeing and identifying to them and saying, I see how you feel. I know how hard this is. I recognize how this ability right now to have to intentionally move towards something, almost stirring up something. There's almost like, again, what did masculine set their path on doing? Almost intentionally stirring something up from the past to see if it could be healed. This is feminine giving that touch and saying, I know how that feels. I see what you're trying to do, even if it doesn't have the impact that you would aspire to. Because this is almost feminine reminding masculine and saying, I know why your intentions here are pure, right? And for masculine in that way right now, we see that act, even that act of support from the feminine is helping a moment that they themselves are feeling some of that anxiety about not getting the return on what they initially even moved towards at a point of identifying that they would have to surrender the potential outcome. Feminine seeing masculine in this modality right now, this is almost amplifying why the feminine energy is able to maintain a point of emotional stability, because this is feminine energy learning the difference between acting as a mirror versus being a mirror that shows someone not what they're seeing, but what they need at that moment. So feminine is almost reaching into what the masculine has taught the feminine in the divine union right now to show the masculine what they need at this time to help them through this, which is that emotional stability. Masculine and feminine energy coming into divine union right now. This is that problematic area. This is why we see a lot of energy potentially falling into separation over this, because there's a moment right now for masculine where you're trying to come into divine union, and suddenly there's a lot of energy from the past popping up, and I bet you wish this energy from the past had popped up a few weeks ago, a few months ago. Timing is hard. But that's the exact point. That's the exact point. The point is the timing is never going to be ideal when the past comes back. The question is where the past finds you when it comes back. And what we're effectively seeing right now for a lot of the masculine energy that is feeling somewhat frustrating is, again, a point or an opportunity that is almost amplifying, even for a lot of masculine energy in this modality right now, something about the circumstances and situations that you're navigating, trying to come into divine union right now, feel like they are so frustrating because it almost feels like an impossibility point. It almost feels like something of, again, especially, I have to stress, if there's something that you're experiencing right now, masculine, that you're like, what are the odds? What are the timing? Well, this is a moment that you're like, exactly, anything that's navigated, like that can be navigated, that doesn't have a timeline on it, is going to amplify to you something that feels like it is supportive and building towards a positive divine union, versus something that just makes you feel that sense of potentially shaking your own desire in terms of what it is that you truly seek and what it is that you truly want. When we truly need something, when we truly want something, we have to be unwavering in that desire. And what we see right now for a lot of the energy moving into divine union right now is a moment that one's own sense of purpose is potentially feeling challenged by the past coming back forward right now. Welcome to the Mercury retrograde. And what we're seeing and identifying right now, and this is what's so valuable for the energy that's coming into divine union, it's not the fact, masculine, that this isn't difficult. We're seeing here, feminine's gone through it. Feminine knows, feminine observes, feminine can see the fact that there's something about these circumstances and situations that are very difficult. The problem with it is that feminine is much more used to this. Feminine is much more able to maintain that point of emotional balance through the past rising up. Because feminine almost looks at it more as the past potentially rising up to try to trigger the feminine, while masculine, your own ability right now to have to choose as it relates to what you're navigating towards is the thing that is the challenge point. That is that point of, again, what is it that you're trying to manifest? If you're masculine coming into divine union right now and you're having this moment of being like, why is all this happening when I'm trying to manifest something? It's because, again, make sure that you know what you want in your heart. Move towards that with determination. And that's what's effectively helping right now. And it's hard for a lot of the masculine energy right now because that ability to let something go is something that you yourself need to heal, because it's the recognition that letting something go isn't a disempowering moment. It is a moment that shows your own ability of personal power Like your own ability of personal choice, your own ability to stand in the face of energy around you that wants to move you in different directions and say, but I'm choosing to move this way, as opposed to just being navigated by what is presented to you. And that's why we see that a lot of the feminine energy in separation right now is holding masculine at such a distance, because feminine energy has serious concerns about masculine's own ability to manifest against their own willpower. That the ability of masculine to maintain a point of willpower as it relates to what is brought before them versus what it is that they truly need to hold on to and navigate towards right now. This is almost, again, like feminine saying, how am I going to let you on my ship? How am I going to let you be a captain on my ship if the first time there's some rocks with some sirens on it, you're just going to jump off the side of it, right? This is feminine that's effectively feeling to a certain extent that they're like manning the ship, if you will. And if that's occurred, then you shouldn't be surprised when like you try to swim back to the ship and the feminine suddenly is not that inclined to lend you a rope, okay? We're seeing that to a certain extent here, and that's how a lot of the feminine energy is feeling right now, energetically, spiritually. So we see that a lot of that feminine energy right now feels a frustration point of seeing masculine in some capacity, not recognizing that the past in a way is almost like a siren call that pulls the masculine away from what they're creating in the present. And the masculine's own ability not to build closure around circumstances and situations effectively prevent masculine from being able to move forward with a destination because of too much focus on the past. Masculine energy in separation right now. This is that moment that you may be feeling somewhat unmoored right now, because we see here that there's something about almost feeling like a point of limbo that's occurring right now for a lot of the masculine energy in separation, because effectively there's a moment where it's like that recognition point that your past is coming back to the surface over and over and over again. But again, especially if you're building those communication points, everything is in determination with like looking right now with some optics in terms of your own choice as it relates to what your destination is. And it's not even a moment right now for like a lot of masculine energy that this is where the retrograde for the masculine in separation has maybe potentially been very difficult. It's almost this like energy right now of the past coming back up for a lot of the masculine in separation. But the bigger question that a lot of that energy is almost saying is, where are you going? Where are you trying to go? What is it? And almost that point right now of personal determination, of recognizing to a certain extent that that choice needs to exist within the self, finding that internal compass right now for a lot of the masculine energy and separation. That's going to feel like a lot of that heavy path work that we're seeing right now, because again, it's navigating some situations from the past rising up either on a practical level or on a metaphysical one right now, that's almost articulating and amplifying a need and a determination to say, what direction are these things going in? What direction do they need to go in? In order to manifest, you need to be able to point. You need to be able to have that compass point. So we see for a lot of the masculine energy in separation right now, that point and recognizing that that point of determination isn't something that exists outside the self, but something that you yourself are capable of creating, and that the energy around you is waiting for you to do so. Like, to a certain extent, that is a lot of this path work. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Four of Swords and its reversal in combination with our Ace of Cups. May I please have one card to clarify? Seven of Swords in its reversal. Masculine and feminine energy in divine union. This is that moment that we see, and this I have to stress right now. This is why we see that a lot of the energy right now in divine union is doing a lot of this work that intentionally navigating towards situations and circumstances from the past. It's specifically around those situations and circumstances are such that you're not opening those boxes due to a desire to go back to past experiences. It's more just to heal them. Remember what I said about the teaspoon? It's not with a desire to return back to past situations or circumstances. It's just for the desire of healing them. That mutual sense of understanding of saying, I exist here in the present. Any healing I want to bring to something is not for the sake of opening, like this is not opening it up to dive back into something. It's to heal. It's to allow for that healing. That teaspoon effect is what is amplifying and articulating what feels like it is positive and restorative. The positive ratio in healing something karmic versus the energy coming into divine union right now. This doesn't feel like intentional work. It feels like a challenge space because it's looking at something that you feel like you have to deal with in order to go forward. And you do. It's the gauntlet. It's the gauntlet right now of feeling the past coming to the surface to amplify and articulate where your priority is. Is your priority running back to the past experience to try to open that back up again? Or is your priority giving something a teaspoon, especially if something can wait, and saying, now is not the time. I need to do what is in best interest of the divine union frequency. This can wait. Thank you, but this can wait. A lot of the energy right now in separation was due to the fact that it felt like someone could not do that ratio distribution effectively and instead basically like jumped ship because as you're trying to build the divine union, some energy around them came forward and was like, wanted to get a cup of coffee or they wanted to heal something. And even if it came from a good-natured place or space, without that ability of discernment, that navigation point between something coming back to the past in order to heal, which you can only do if you've been in the divine union frequency deep enough that you both intentionally decide to do so, versus someone saying, oh, here comes the past, I gotta go. That's that difference. And that's why we see a lot of the feminine energy right now in that modality is not chasing after that, because this is feminine energy feeling the frustration of masculine, lacking the ability to close a door, to let something go, and realizing that determination point has to do with what feels like it is something that is, again, in the best interest of something that is being built versus something that feels like it is harmful. Feels like something that does not create abundance, but is just the difference between an unhealed karmic connection, something that pulls you back to it without any sense of peace, just a continuation of the pain. Masculine in separation right now, seeing feminine in this modality right now is difficult because we see here that, again, this could be a moment that even on your own path work, you have set that course for yourself, not to let yourself return to situations and circumstances that have caused you that sense of harm. But at the same time, it is requiring you to really focus on what it is that you're truly seeking at this time and amplifying and articulating that, not just to articulate where you're going right now, but because it's almost this recognition point that the reason so much of this energy from the past, so much of this unhealed energy holds towards you in this way is due to the fact that it's like almost waiting for you to amplify and articulate what it is that you're actually seeking. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Eight of Pentacles in combination with our Knight of Pentacles. We have here our Seven of Cups in its reversal. Masculine and feminine energy in divine union right now. This focus, this attention that you're putting towards situations and circumstances, that recognition point on what it is that you truly desire, what you hold as your importance. This is exactly why we see it allows an ability right now of putting things forward and not being too upset if they don't return back in this capacity, because this is what it looks like when you're trying to heal something on a karmic level. But you're, again, almost relinquishing the outcome, as it were, because, again, it is that focus that this wasn't kind of path work that you were doing to move away from what it is that you have your intentionality on. Rather, It was amplifying and articulating the determination of the path that you're on. Masculine and feminine energy that are coming into divine union. This moment is amplifying again the differentiation point on where your focus is. Because even at this time right now, for the energy that's moving into the divine union frequency, it's not the fact that there aren't an abundance of karmic opportunities that are popping up right now. It's more that determination path in terms of saying where your focus needs to be right now, recognizing that a divine union forming almost requires that level of fastidiousness in relation to your energy that is amplifying and articulating whether energy is continuing to move towards divine union right now. Feminine energy and separation, this is why we see the feminine is almost pushing back and rejecting a lot of the masculine in this modality right now, because this is feminine energy that isn't letting themselves get knocked off course if masculine is fickle in what they're offering. This is feminine almost just taking the note and continuing forward in this way, and almost leaving it to the masculine to identify and articulate their own ability to do so. Masculine in separation right now, the challenging point we're seeing is, again, seeing feminine so determined on this path and this coursework right now, it almost makes it very difficult for you to have an ability to access what it is that you aspire to, due to the fact that this is feminine energy that's so focused on their own sense of personal contentment and their own uncertainty or anxiety of letting masculine energy in at this time, that it makes it hard to build a connection. Continuing to get clarification between our Knight of Pentacles and our Emperor in its reversal. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our Nine of Cups in its reversal. Masculine and feminine energy right now in divine union. We see here that this is how the energy in divine union is supporting one another at this time, because there is that moment or opportunity where it's not the fact that masculine moving forward in this way isn't hard. This is masculine energy setting themselves on some path work right now that puts them, like, again, having to relinquish the outcome, as it were, around circumstances and situations is challenging, because you don't know what is effectively going to result in that. There's that feeling of, again, almost this is masculine, like we identified. This is almost masculine trying to do this type of karmic energy work right now, where it's like abandoning their armor. Like showing, showing their cards, going and approaching something and almost trying to bring a level or degree of peace to circumstances or situations as it relates to unhealed karmic energy right now. That's almost expressed by the abandonment of artifice that feels so challenging to a masculine, because it is something that feels incredibly vulnerable to having opened up in that capacity. And what we're seeing here is a lot of the masculine energy, even in this modality right now, it could be very hard, because there's that, it's almost like putting oneself in a very vulnerable space. But again, the energy that's doing so is doing so because they have the emotional stability of the feminine with them as they engage in that way. That in a way, that ability to become so vulnerable is the gift of coming towards a feminine that's at a point of emotional balance. It's like feminine is holding the emotional balance for a masculine that is allowing them to become this vulnerable. Masculine and feminine coming towards into divine union right now. This is that moment that even now feels very frustrating for the masculine energy, due to the fact that we are recognizing that there's something about this moment right now as you're moving into divine union that feels, I'm going to identify this as a moment that feels almost very unfair for a lot of the masculine energy trying to move into divine union right now, because it's almost that moment that is it feels like, I want to define this as a bit of too much cake moment. Isn't it interesting that just as you're about to move towards something, suddenly all of these things are coming up around you. All of these things are popping up to help deviate you on your own karmic path. So recognizing this to a certain extent is almost amplifying right now to the degree and that point of recognizing that there's a point that you have to see on your own path work right now that is amplifying and articulating that you need to have that sense of personal choice in the midst of what you are building at this time. So we even see that for a lot of the energy trying to maintain the divine union frequency right now, for the masculine specifically, this feels very challenging because it almost feels like a level or degree of unfairness emotionally or energetically that's occurring right now, because it's almost like a lot of energy coming towards you at this time and you being like, now's not the time. I can't be in both places at once. I can't occupy all of these things at the same time, which is why this is such heavy energy right now that requires emotional support from the feminine, because masculine needs to navigate. If you're coming into divine union, the answer is where your navigation point is. Where should your center of navigation be right now, masculine, if you're trying to come into divine union and suddenly there's a bunch of offers and opportunities coming towards you? Staying in divine union with the feminine. Like the answer is right there. And for masculine and feminine, they're falling into separation right now. This is effectively why, because this is, again, a moment of masculine kind of potentially moving at that space or place of feeling, again, and this is either for a lot of the masculine energy in this modality, this could be this moment of feeling frustration and being like, well, I wasn't sure what I was supposed to do. There are too many things calling my attention. And it's like, yes. That's why we see that a lot of the feminine energy in separation right now is like, yeah. Go ahead. Do those things. That's fine. Yeah, I get it. You're busy. That's okay. Go ahead. No, it's fine. And this is why we see that a lot of this feminine energy, because again, it's that moment of frustration with the feminine saying, if you don't understand, if you don't see, if you can't observe that you're saying that something is too complicated, feminine's almost identifying like it shouldn't be complicated. This is almost feminine in separation saying, if you don't realize that the problem is that you're saying that something was too complicated to make the choice, then that in itself is all that I need to see. Like that is why we see that feminine energy to a certain extent is like, go ahead. Go ahead, go. No, it's fine. I'm busy. I got to wash my hair. I got to darn my socks. No, go. That's why we see that so much of this feminine energy right now is just kind of being like, I'm good. Masculine energy in separation right now, there's that moment that, again, it may be requiring or amplifying towards you right now something that feels very difficult if you're in separation, due to the fact that there is potentially this moment that you weren't necessarily feeling to a certain extent. You may be feeling frustration that you were just trying to please everybody all of the time. But that potentially was a bit of the course correction that's happening here, because when we move in that modality of just trying to take what's around us and doing what we need to at every moment, we sometimes forget what's at the heart. And so for a lot of masculine energy right now, there's almost this moment that's being called forth that's saying, where is it that you want to go versus what is popping up around you as you're trying to get there. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Emperor in its reversal in combination with our Seven of Swords in its reversal. May I please have one card to clarify? Queen of Swords, masculine and feminine energy in divine union. This is that point of consistency that's articulating and amplifying where it is that you're trying to go versus some of the situations and circumstances from the past. And we even see right now, one of the things that we appreciate is that the masculine and feminine in this modality right now are working. This is the feminine working to protect masculine, even as they do some of this heavy work. This is feminine energy almost coming through in a supportive way for the energy that is intentionally moving in this capacity in union. This is feminine saying, I've got your back as you do this. And this is feminine almost taking on the role of the masculine so that masculine can move into that vulnerable space that is often occupied by the feminine. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union right now, this point of observation that we're potentially seeing here is amplifying to a certain degree, again, where the masculine energy's own determination is. Because this is feminine that is looking towards masculine right now, if moving into divine union, and saying, where are you concentrating your attention on? And this is a feminine that's almost saying, for the feminine, this is easy work. This is easier for the feminine. Feminine is much better at doing this to a certain extent. Feminine is built to a certain extent in terms of having to push energy away. And this is why we see that this feminine energy, if in separation right now, is so much like this, because this is feminine being like, this is all I have to do as a feminine. This is like what feminine is good at. Having to push against things so defensively almost has feminine now at a point where it's like everything is very defensive, or they're very protective against these things right now because they're feeling an anxiety point of a masculine that lacks that ability of mastery of the self, potentially around situations and circumstances from the past. Masculine energy and separation right now, that modality, that recognition point that we are seeing is amplifying the difference right now. Again, potentially having to look at situations and circumstances from the past right now and having that moment of recognizing what it is that you're trying to change, but feeling the frustration of a feminine that now is very much like holding a deep amount of protection against the energy, because even through your own personal sense of observation, it's hard to even articulate that you yourself have come into that healing journey, because it's almost like something that you realize is going to require a lot of vulnerability to almost amplify again and again right now that you're not returning back to that past self. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our 7 of Cups in its reversal in combination with our 9 of Cups in its reversal. May I please have one card to clarify? 10 of Wands, masculine and feminine energy in divine union right now. That ability to move forward right now, that ability to focus on that path work. This is all just feeling like a continuation of the process. And that's why we see, to a certain extent, for the energy in divine union, this ability right now to recognize that it does feel like you're doing a little bit of dual path work right now. It's focusing on what it is that you're trying to motivate and stay in, but also putting a lot of care and consideration in terms of pouring a lot of effort and energy into spaces and places that you're trying to heal. It feels like a lot of heavy lifting, like you're trying to do 2 things at once, but it's because there's 2 of you. It's because you're moving from that space or place of having the collective energy around you right now that is amplifying and articulating and feeling like that burden is not one that's entirely on your back. It is a collective shared path work that you're doing. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union right now, this is the challenge point, because it is the point of recognizing all of the areas of temptation around you at this time that are calling your effort and energy away from divine union, while focusing on what it is that's truly of importance to you right now is amplifying your own ability to move into divine union, because this is the challenge point or hurdle that you're hitting that's potentially causing some of this friction as you try to maintain that point. The energy in separation right now, what we're effectively identifying is a point of recognizing for feminine's trying to do this work on their own right now. Feminine is almost taking on that burden right now in separation because of a lack of anxiety, in trusting masculine to be able to stay focused on the path. And that is why we see so much of the feminine energy right now almost keeping a lot of that austerity as they continue and focus on their work, due to some of that trauma that they're trying to heal of energy that they feel wasn't as consistently on the path. Masculine, you're potentially doing this path work as well. The problem or hurdle that we're potentially seeing is helping feminine recognize that you yourself are committed to that same energy. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our 9 of Cups in its reversal in combination with our Queen of Swords. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our 6 of Cups in its reversal. Masculine and feminine energy in divine union right now, this is that path work that we're seeing. This is that work that we are identifying and recognizing, that ability and that purpose to try to heal situations and circumstances that need this level or degree of healing right now. It's not necessarily easy. We see that it's creating a space or place, particularly for masculine right now, that's almost making the masculine feel much more vulnerable. Feminine, intriguingly, seeing masculine at that point of vulnerability is actually empowering the feminine. It's actually building this sense of strength in the feminine, because this is feminine in divine union, almost acting as that like strong mirror, as it were, not necessarily just seeing what the masculine's showing them, but instead pulling forward what the masculine needs at that moment, which is the strength that they learn through the masculine's own tenacity in this capacity. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union right now, this is that point of observation that is being amplified about energy that, again, it's putting forth. There's a lot of energy coming towards a divine union right now, using discernment to discern and determine what is actually positive right now relies on masculine looking towards feminine in the feminine own comfort level, and potentially employing time to situations and circumstances to navigate whether the feminine energy is the priority, thus allowing for a continuation into divine union, or if this is falling back into separation. Because we see here that if there's a lot of energy here that makes that choice away from the feminine without the feminine's consent in terms of that directionality, this is almost immediately causing separation again. And that's why we see that the feminine is not only, we almost see that this is literally like this, I'm giving the direction of a one-sided door. Like you can go out, but when you try to come back in, something may feel a little bit blocked. And we're seeing that for a lot of the masculine energy in this modality right now, this is almost that moment of recognizing to a certain extent, potentially a feminine that said to a certain degree, go ahead, do whatever you want. And now there's a door. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now. But again, we see that for a lot of the masculine energy in this modality of healing, it's that observation point of personal choice. It's that observation point in determining and recognizing and facilitating what need to be corrected for in the past, what your own inability potentially, again, having to have that point of discernment right now is now amplifying with a lot of the healed masculine why you see the feminine in this modality right now. But again, we see that it's coming from the positive point of wanting to heal and coming into that point of correction. Final card for today's spread between our 10 of Wands in combination with our 6 of Cups, in its reversal. Two cards we love to see together right now. Final card is King of Swords. Masculine and feminine energy in divine union. What do we see is happening right now? Masculine energy trying to put forth and heal circumstances and situations outside of partnership. Recognizing, again, maybe not immediately seeing what you would anticipate or hope, but that determination point, the unified collective determination point on the path that you're heading to go right now is helping the masculine energy through any of these karmic hurdles, because it is the difference between feeling like one is doing something alone versus feeling that supportive energy around you right now. And we see here that in a way, it's almost allowing masculine energy in divine union to drop their armor, to be much more vulnerable than they would typically do, specifically knowing that the energy around them is helping to support them as they do so. Because something about this is requiring the masculine to be very vulnerable in order to heal something. Masculine and feminine energy that are coming into divine union right now, it is that same act. This is masculine surrendering an unhealed karmic connection by choosing the path going forward, potentially postponing a healing here, saying to someone, I can't heal right now, maybe potentially even looking at something and saying, I know that you're coming towards me with the best intentions, but I need to stay on my course right now to allow for this actually to come into healing. masculine and feminine, recognizing this right now is almost that moment that it has to require you to, like, again, let go of something for a bit of time, even if it's temporary, so that you can focus on where you're mutually trying to go together. Recognizing that if something is truly in an act of healing, it will still be there to heal once you get to that destination, i.e. coming into divine union and maintaining it. Masculine and feminine in separation right now, this is why we see the feminine is so conscientious on letting masculine in, because this is feminine that almost feels that masculine doesn't recognize the ability of holding to the focus in the wake of energy around them, that masculine is too susceptible to energy around them that makes it hard for them to prioritize what it is that they truly need to prioritize at this moment, which is why we see so much of the feminine right now is at that moment of holding back. Masculine in this moment right now, it could feel very difficult because, again, this could be a moment that you're trying to heal some energy right now with feminine, but it's almost feminine energy that's almost trying to take the full burden on themselves. It's the anxiety of seeing a feminine that's trying to carry it all on their back due to a lack of trust, as it were, in your own conviction and ability to want to be able to participate and be with the feminine. So we see there to a certain extent with masculine right now, holding space, trying to help, moving into a state or space of austerity, helping to shoulder the burden is almost like the best way that you're almost able to amplify to a feminine, that you're not just there to, like, because it feels easy. It's almost like amplifying that you're there for, like, when things get hard as well. Bottom of the deck on this reading right now is High Priestess. So masculine and feminine energy in divine union right now. This is, again, feminine energy working really hard to trust their own intuition. Masculine is trying to foster this with the feminine. It's hard right now. Feminine, we see there's a lot of anxiety potentially being placed right now on feminine's own ability to maintain that trust in their own self, especially as it relates to seeing masculine in these moments or situations that feel like they're so difficult. We see here that feminine, to a certain extent, is working almost in a way like anticipated and knew that this would be some of that work right now. And we see that a lot of this, even for the energy right now in divine union, feminine trusting their instincts is something that feminine is trying to come into, embodying and holding on to, as it were. The energy right now coming into divine union, again, this is that point of potential frustration, because we see that for a lot of the masculine energy right now, there's something potentially being identified as the difference between something that you potentially see as harmless versus the energy that is next to you that doesn't, that needs to be noticed. It's almost like that discerning point right now that is creating a space or place of challenge, because it's almost requiring you to have that act of trust. It's requiring to throw your trust into the feminine by identifying and amplifying that that is the direction that you're effectively trying to go into right now. And we see that for a lot of the masculine energy right now, having that motivating factor and recognizing that that partnership, that ability to, like, build with the feminine in that capacity is a release process. And even now we see that, again, this is feminine energy, and this is the hardship that we see the feminine in, which is, again, a feminine that knows, doesn't desire to tell feminine masculine this, because this is feminine that's almost amplifying, that says, if I have to tell the masculine that their GPS, that their orientation point should be me, this is feminine saying, I've already failed. This is not something that feminine feels that they need or ought to communicate. This is something that the masculine should have the ability to recognize and embody, which is why we see for the feminine, it doesn't matter knowing this. This is why we see that so much of this feminine energy isn't even communicating at that point, because this feminine energy is saying, if I have to tell you, this already feels like a point of failure. That is our daily collective read for today. I want to thank you guys so much for being here and experiencing it with me. Just a reminder, if you would like to book a private reading, you can book one on my website, graystrega.com. My private readings are done over video, and if you are a subscriber to my TikTok, you can take 10% off any of my services when you pay. Just mention your subscriber ID at the point of payment. Please keep in mind, if you book a private reading with me, it is a two-step process. You have to book the reading, you have to pay for the reading. Please make sure you do both if you'd like to have that reading. Most importantly, please remember that I will never, ever, 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 ever reach out to you for a private reading. I will never DM you. I will never PM you. I will never slide into your inbox and tell you that I have a very important message that only I can deliver. The only way you can book a reading with me is if you book one on my website. So I encourage you to do it there. I want to thank you guys so much for being here with me today and sharing with me in these messages. And we will do this again